Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney, or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it, Legends. So, the title of the video, I have a couple things before that, but forewarning, I will not be talking about the last story in this book, because it technically takes place way later, like right before Hand of Thrawn. So, it'll be a bit. I know people are probably super excited to hear my thoughts on Last Man Standing, the Boba Fett short story, but that's not happening today, unfortunately. I'm sorry. However, I wanted to mention a few short things before talking about the book series, obviously. So, in Star Wars Tales, which is usually, right? In Star Wars Tales number 6, we have Thank the Maker by Ryder Wynnum. This is so good, guys. Most of Star Wars Tales sucks, but this is a must, especially if you do like the prequels. If you like all the movies, if you're not a OT purist, even if you like the sequels, I don't care. If you like Star Wars, all of it, this is a must. So, obviously the Empire made it with hyperdrive to Cloud City in Episode 5 a bit before our heroes did, because the hyperdrive wasn't working. We also know that C-3PO gets, kind of separated from that group and gets shot. But why would the Empire give him back? Why would they let them? Well, in this short story, we find out that Vader got to see C-3PO all broken up. And so we get flashbacks to little Annie from episode 1. We get to see him finding C-3PO and repairing him. His mom saying he can make him, but that if he's going to keep him, he has to take care of him. And if he can't take care of him, then he doesn't deserve him. It's just a fantastic little tale. It's very short, but it's so well done. You even have a part where Annie's hugging his mom, and then it cuts back to present day, and Vader has his head against C-3PO's forehead. It's brilliant. And by the end, Vader says, "Give it back to the Wookiee." And they're like, "What? What do you mean, give it back to the Wookiee?" He belongs to someone who deserves him, or something like that is what's said. And it just, if you love the OT, if you love the original trilogy, and you love the prequel trilogy, that meld right there, that potential with what the prequels gave us, maybe I'm overhyping this just a bit, but it was such a good little story, especially for someone who enjoyed the prequels, to just, because Vader never really interacts with C-3PO, right? But what if he did? And he got to see him in this one. I know R2-D2 was at the Battle of the Death Star, but Vader's shooting at ships. He's not paying attention to what robot is on the ship. He doesn't care about that. But this, he was up close and personal with C-3PO, and you knew he knew that. That was his droid. And so I just thought that was done so well. So thank you, George Lucas, for making Anakin be the one to make him. Otherwise, you wouldn't have this phenomenal little comic, which I really enjoyed. We also have Tales number 4, Moment of Doubt. So the art's nice. Darth Vader calls all the bounty hunters, the ones we're going to see in the book I'm talking about, and apparently a few others, because before the rest of them showed up, this guy showed up. But he's actually somebody else, because he's from a planet where Vader killed most of his loved ones, and so he's trying to get revenge, and so he goes all out trying to kill Vader, and it's a little bit of an intense battle. But of course, Vader's victorious, and the guy dies. And, he's just slightly scraped up, nothing too bad. And so he goes to heal up in his chamber. Now, This didn't really need to be explained. The scene exists in episode 5 just to show us that Vader is not a robot, that he is in fact a man. That was the only purpose of having the helmet come off and seeing the back of his head in episode 5. That was it, just so you know that there is a person underneath that suit. But now it's like, okay, well, he got into a little scruffle, so he took off his stuff, healed up a bit, and then put the mask back on, and that's when that guy walks in episode 5. So that works out okay. It's a decent little thing. And then we have Tales 15, Slippery Slope. So in this one, Luke is training on Dagobah with Yoda and a bounty hunter. This episode's all about bounty hunters, apparently. But but this bounty hunter is just a robot. It's not IG-88. It's some other random robot. He's like, I'm going to capture Luke Skywalker and bring him to the Empire, or hold him to ransom for the rebellion to keep my mouth shut, and I'll get even more money. And Luke makes him go away without worry of being caught. It's fine. It's okay. It's nothing fantastic. It's not horrible though. The most one of the things mostly debated about the whole Dagobah thing is how long did it take? Was it a month? 2 months? You know, because it's kind of a montage. We kind of just run through a lot of things. And then we know that Han, Leia, and Chewbacca and everything didn't have hyperdrive. Their hyperdrive wasn't working. So it was taking them longer to get places than usual. Did it take them a month? Because it suddenly didn't feel like a month in the movie. So I don't know. But because it's kind of vague on how much time has passed, I guess you can fit this little story in here. Lastly, we have Star Wars Adventures. Luke Skywalker and the treasure of the dragon snakes. So Yoda sends Luke on this mission to defeat the dragon snakes and require an egg so that he can make better soup. It's there if you want it. I mean, it's fun. It's not offensively bad or anything. It's just another little adventure, apparently, that Luke had on Dagobah that we didn't see during his training. Now, to the moment you've all been waiting for. And I have a physical copy this time. Tales of the Bounty Hunters. Edited by Kevin J. Anderson. There's also some cool little pictures in the beginning of the book. We got IG-88 right there. We got if we move ahead, where the fudge is it? Get a frick. Sorry. I'm gonna get it. I swear. Oh, did I miss it? We got Dengar. So that's pretty cool. And then we have Bosk and Forlom and Zuckuss and all that. They're all on the cover here. But gosh, this book was so much fun, guys. It's shorter than the Tales from Mos Eisley. That's because there's more characters. This we're only focusing on the people we saw in that scene on the Executor, Star Destroyer. So we have, Forlom, Zuckuss, we have Bosk, we have Dengar, and we have IG-88, and we have Boba Fett. Of course, we're not talking about the Boba Fett one, because that one actually takes place way down the line. So, we're not going to discuss it here. The first tale in this short story collection is Therefore I Am. IG-88's tale. I love you, Kevin J. Anderson. I know you're not watching this video, but you are so in my top 10 EU writers. I'm sorry if Quality Autism is watching. He's like, no, Kevin J. Anderson, it makes a stupid Jedi Academy trilogy. Freaking this, I love it. I love him. Everything he writes to me is fun. It may not be the pinnacle of storytelling, but everything he writes is so much fun. So we get an entire backstory for IG-88 here. He becomes self-aware, becomes sentient, he becomes Skynet, wanted to take over the entire freaking galaxy, and of course it's Kevin J. Anderson, because for those of you who don't know, try to, plug in other things that I've talked about before, and I will finish off the trilogy eventually. The earliest thing in the timeline prequel, the Butlerian Jihad for the Dune books. Now that's a whole other contentious topic. A lot of the people hate anything that's not made by Frank Herbert and the Dune franchise, but I have to say I read the first book in that trilogy and I loved it. And Kevin J. Anderson also has another robot character who has a very interesting personality within that book. And in the same way, he makes it, not in the same way, but he makes IG-88 just as compelling. I loved learning about IG-88. IG-88 was trying to make this whole like orchestrated plan to take over the entire galaxy. Apart from everything going on with the rebels, frick the rebels, frick the Empire. He has his own goal set in mind. He the only reason he even shows up on the Executor in the first place is because he's using the bounty hunter job as a way to like not cause suspicion, because they take over this mining place in like the Outer Rim or something, of the Empire, and they fake communications and stuff as if humans are still alive, but they killed everybody there. So that's another thing. There's like 4 or 5 of these IG-88s that all have the same like mind. They all have downloaded the same information. So it's basically as if IG-88 is just in control of 5 bodies, essentially. And then there's IG-72, which that went nowhere. He just kind of shows up, does his own thing, pisses off. But by the end of it, it messes with my OCD a bit, because by the end it does kind of lead into episode 6, which is a little bit annoying because I like to do things in chronological order, and I legit considered just stopping reading the book and moving on to the next story, but I was like, no, I can't do that. So I read it just by myself, because I like to read things in as chronological order as I possibly can, but I bore with it for this one. And so eventually, IG-88 learns about the second Death Star being built. And so he goes, once I have control of this battle station, I can control the entire galaxy. So he tries to take over the Death Star. Of course, it's going to get blown up in episode 6, so he won't get to really enjoy that. But there'll still be 4 other bodies that he can take control of after the fact. But yeah, that was Therefore I Am, IG-88's story, and it is fantastic. I absolutely adored it. Up next, we have Dengar's story, Payback, by Dave Wolverton. Yes, from Courtship of Princess Leia of fame. He also wrote for the Tales of Mos Eisley collection. He wrote the Hammerhead's Tale, I think, if I remember correctly. This one was also fantastic. So, freaking Dengar's plan, after talking to Vader, is to basically join the rebellion, and by joining the rebellion, he can find Han in there. That doesn't really work out, of course, because only Boba Fett gets him. In fact, actually, Boba Fett's the one that kind of fricks him over, because, but doesn't kill him. He just kind of incapacitates him, because he's like, no, this bounty is mine, which I thought was really cool. We also have this interesting connection with Corellia, because Dengar is Corellian, and he's kind of like RoboCop in some ways, where he was in this, I'm assuming, swoop race, but that might have not been a name yet. I don't remember, but he was in some sort of race with Han Solo and Corellia. I'm assuming probably back when he was with Garrus Shrike, or maybe he came back a little bit later. I'm not sure, but he basically got into an accident. It's kind of like RoboCop, or think the robot from the Doom Patrol, if you know about that comic/show. And he gets rebuilt, without certain things, without his memories, or he kind of has his memories, but not exactly. And this actually transitions into a love story, believe it or not. And it's really good, and it's not something I expected from a bounty hunter story. But at the same time, I really dug that about this story. I really enjoyed that about this story. And so, that was really cool. He does, by the end of the story, it again jumps past episode 6. Like, now we're even past the movie stages. And this will be kind of rehashed in the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy whenever I get to it. But Dengar saves Boba Fett's life. I mean, Boba Fett himself escaped the Sarlacc pit, but he might have escaped the Sarlacc, but he can't move. He's kind of really injured, so he's kind of just dying out in the sand now. And so it's Dengar who will nurse him back to health. So, and they kind of become like this unofficial friends. Um, and it's kind of funny. The book ends with Dengar asking him to attend his wedding because he's gonna get married. So it was also a really good Boba Fett moment in a story that's not about him, because Dengar starts choking him near the end, um, and like, man, he's gonna, and you just hear Boba Fett being like, "I'm sorry," because he kind of like betrayed Dengar, and he's like, "Yeah, it was just a job, man. I'm sorry." However, I was like, I mean, I appreciate that from Boba, but would he say that? But then you see that he has a gun that he got from Dengar and is pointing it at like his rib cage, but he hasn't pulled the trigger, and he's still being choked. So he's actively allowing him to. And then he even tells Dengar, "My life is in your hands." So he could just end Dengar's life right now, but he's refusing to out of honor. And I thought that was really cool. But yeah, the Dengar story is probably my favorite, if not either my favorite or my second favorite. I'm kind of in the middle between that and IG-88 story, just because I really like Kevin J. Anderson, but I also really like Dave Wolverton, so I'm kind of like in the middle there. Now we get to the weakest part of the book, which is Prize Pelt, Bosk's Tale by Kathy Tyers. It's not bad, it's just okay. And with the last two stories being so good, I was just really disappointed kind of with what we got of Bosk. I mean, we learned a lot of cool lore things here. Though if you've been a prequel guy, then you already knew about it because you played Republic Commando. You know, Trandoshans are slavers. They especially like to be mean to Wookiees because they have this whole gripe with Wookiees, and it's why Bosk really wants to, more than Han Solo, wants to get Chewbacca. But nothing ever happens with that. He ends up joining these other bounty hunters and ends up getting betrayed by them, and it's fine. But just in comparison to the last two stories we had, it's not that phenomenal or unexpected, I guess, of a story. And it's kind of sad because Ryder Winham wrote the episode 2 Adventures with Jango Fett, and it had Bosk and his father in it. And I enjoyed Bosk as comedy relief more in those young adult books than I did in this novel. I wonder if I'll have a different perspective on him when I get to the Bounty Hunter Wars, but as of right now, I am just not a fan of Bosk in the slightest. He's just a reptile. There are reptiles in Star Trek too. His outfit is literally stolen from Doctor Who because they just had some leftover costumes and used that. It's literally a costume from Doctor Who. But yeah, I just felt this one was the weakest. I like Kathy Tyers a lot. I think she writes a lot of good stuff, but I think this is just one of her weaker stories. I do like all the stuff that we learned about. It's like Predator stuff and whatnot. It reminds me a lot of the movie Predator, you know, with the way he goes about hunting and capturing his prizes and all that. But the overall gist of the story just didn't really vibe with me that well, and I just didn't care really. I mean, it was just a very run of the mill. If I can compare it to anything, it'd be like an adventure journal bounty hunter story. Like, here's a basic story for you to kind of like envision yourself for when you start playing this role playing game. But it was nothing phenomenal. So I was just a bit disappointed in that one. And lastly, because again, I can't talk about Last Man Standing because, first off, the beginning of it takes place during episode 6, which is not now. And the vast majority of it actually takes place like years after the fact. The final showdown with Han Solo, even though it's not the last time they would meet. Just the last time that they would kind of bicker and fight, which is like right before Hand of Thrawn. So I can't talk about it here. But I've heard amazing things about it, and I will talk about it eventually. Just have patience. But lastly, we have Of Possible Futures, The Tale of Forlome and Zakkus by Shane Bell. This one was another surprising one. Like, again, not something I expected. Frickin' Zakkus is dealing with a broken lung. He's struggling to survive. Forlome, his droid companion, is super loyal and is trying to help him get the necessary funds he need through bounty hunting to um, get a new lung. And by the end of the story, I mean, throughout the whole story, we kind of realize that Zuckuss is kind of force sensitive. But by the end of it, even, they completely give up on their mission with Han Solo and they join the Rebel Alliance. Um, and they would later go on to, they say, fund a New Republic sanctioned bounty hunters guild. So, which I vaguely remember something about that, and maybe the Young Jedi Knights series, which would make sense because Kevin J. Anderson also wrote Young Jedi Knights, but I could be wrong. But I feel like I've heard that somewhere before. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed this one as well. It's these two characters that are literally in like maybe a minute or two of a movie, and you give them such vast and interesting like stories, putting them in places you didn't expect them to go, which I really enjoyed. Which I really enjoyed about Tales from Mos Eisley, and I really enjoyed about this. I think that's why I'm so let down by the Bosk one because it's kind of run of the mill, and they didn't really do anything that I wasn't expecting. Not that you have to subvert my expectations, but I don't know. I just wanted something different from the Bosk tale than what I got. But overall, I think that this compilation is fantastic, and I know Last Man Standing is good because I've heard nothing but good things about it from everyone I've ever talked to about it. I will get to it eventually. But yeah, overall, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's so worth your time. If you were watching episode 5 again and you're like, man, what happened to all those bounty hunters? Because freaking they all show up on the Executor and then they're just gone after that and all we see is Boba Fett. Well, this is the book for you. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Up next, I got quite a few shorts. I got the TIE Fighter video game and a guide connected to it. Some Marvel comics down the line, and actually a lot of Marvel comics before we get to episode 6. Shadows of the Empire is also down the line, and we also have both of the Ewok movies that came out. So I hope you will all join me for what's to come, because if you thought the 6-month gap in between episode 5 and 6 would be boring, you're wrong. There's so much to digest, and hope you all join me for that. Until next time, guys, may the Force be with you.